And that is accurate. This is where, at 19 minutes, Monk McGinn is present in his waistcoat, so one can easily see his shirt, and it is spotlessly clean, white, well ironed. This is thus dumb. So I do not like to see that on that type of culture. This collar is clearly sewn in. I mean, this is like an upper class shirt. Now there's a reverend there. At 19 minutes, he's with a little girl, and he has a very flat-brimmed top hat that can be made out of gossamer probably, and it seems very recovered in a plush. This is very accurate. The style, I have seen a lot of that style in the originals for sale on eBay or undated photographs of people from back then, and a lot of top hats look exactly like that. So, my hat's off to that. This is spot on accurate. His suit also is more narrow. He is supposed to be an old clergyman, so clearly his suit, I like to see his suit be snug fitting, more like in the 1850s, because he's more conservative. He is a clergyman, a reverend. In fact, this is the reverend. Compared to Boss Tweed, who, although not young for the past, the actor is in his 50s, so this was not considered young back then. But still, he's younger, and he wants to be a fashionable, trendy politician, and he's wearing this more wide, more ample cut. So this is different. The fit is how it actually fits. Is it too small, too big? And the cut is the style. So this is, for example, that coat is too small for me, but also it is a slim fit. And the Reverend is wearing something a slim fitted, but Boss Tweed, as I saw, was wearing something large fitted. So it is good that they did make that difference there to show that Boss Tweed, having money and wanted to be popular, it rather follows the trend. And he's not conservative. He's conservative, but he's not old-fashioned, is what I mean. He follows the fashion. Bill the Butcher is more into snug-fitting clothes. And also the costume is said. This was a choice because they wanted him to look very tall and very thin. So Daniel Day-Lewis is thin but not skinny. So to make him look skinnier and taller, they had him wear more slim-fitting clothes that look more something like... They also had that style in the early 60s, but it looks more sort of mid-late 50s. But makes sense. I mean, the character is supposed to be 7 and 40 years of age, which was very old back then, considered very old, so it makes sense that he would be old-fashioned. Perhaps he wears older garments that he has had for a long time, or he makes them, and he, like even the Tarnu, recently asks for a slimmer cut. So it makes, and also it is a fashion statement. He wants to dress like a dandy, like a fop. So he dresses in quite colorful clothes. There is the hat with the brown headband that is for sale, and yes, it does look like a long-haired beaver plush or felt even. Perhaps it is a felt, or perhaps they use the gossamer technique. It is very hard to tell. I do not have the hat. I cannot touch the hat. I would sort of skip. Yeah, his hat is about 25 centimeters long to 30 centimeters. I would say 25 centimeters long. So I would skip a bit through that. What I like to see is that the shirt cuffs are not thick. They are thinner than that. They do not probably only 2 plies. This is still very popular back then. Most, if not all, shirt cuffs and collars would have been 2 plies, and shirt bosoms would have been 2 plies only. And all those starched, even if heavily starched, not all were heavily starched, but even if heavily starched, they would still look flexible and rather smooth, because it was only 2 plies.
With your help, the people must be made to understand that all these things are best kept.
For example, Boss Tweed, he has this high cravat that passes once below. Down tie like so to pass them once below, and then pull them in the front and tie them into a bow, and sometimes they pass them twice. So anyhow, it creates this big, so sometimes it was called a stock, so to cheat it in, instead of making a knot, it was buckled or tied or buttoned in the back. And so it creates this sort of high band. Instead of being a thin band like that, it was a high band. And its collar is turned over like so, until the cravats, they're not completely turned over. And this was his typical style. But from what I observed upon photographs, especially for people of his class and clearly upper class, or at the very least upper middle class with a minimum amount of wealth, and clearly more well-to-do than the vast average of people who were working class back then. It would have been more starched. It would have been starched more heavily. This seems rather. This is clearly, I suppose, only a 2-ply collar. Again, very hard to tell, but it does seem rather smooth, as if they had barely used any starch, and they would have used starch also because starch was much easier to land then. All these shells would have been boiled, and the starch, the soiling would have been impregnated onto the starch instead of actually dyeing the cloth. So it was actually cost efficient to use starch. So that they all use starch, and all the colors are somewhat too small. So it is, again, the variety is not there. Too soft colors upon too many characters of differing social standards, and the shirts are too wide. I do not see enough striped shirts. Contrary to modern beliefs, most shirts, even back then, were not white, because white gets dirty very quickly. So even back later on in the 1888 photographs, I saw them precisely, it had been scanned on the internet, of the older brother, Prince Victor, the older brother who later on became King George before he died. It looks white, his shirt, and upon observance he has a detachable collar, clearly, also is a contrasting color, which is white, but then the shirt itself is actually white with some stripes. The photograph is black and white, it's very hard to tell. The stripe is black, they seem to be black, but it could just be a dark hue. And this is later in the 19th century, when, and he's very, very rich and very important, so obviously has people who do the laundry for him. In Buckingham Palace, and still, it was the fashion partly, and also partly, every time one went out, it was such a suited atmosphere that even if they change shirt every day, they do not want to directly after an hour get it all dirty looking, so they usually only kept the white shirts for special occasions. And our Bow Street back in 1863, it would most certainly, most of the time, and especially billable, to have had a striped shirt. So even if it has a white background, it will not be all white like that. And like in the movie, this is somewhat inaccurate to have so many of even the elite characters, especially since they are more sort of upper middle class and not the top of the elite, wearing only white shirts all the time, when clearly they are dressed in a fashion that is not formal. It looks formal to the modern eye, but really this is more semi-formal, so they would only have kept they did not have specific shirts for the evening, but they had that formal shirts, and the evening was considered a formal occasion that all polite society, which means upper middle class onwards, polite society, women and men would change to. They would change every evening except on the Sunday to eat dinner and go to party and all. And it was a minimum formal that they would wear a white shirt. But in the daytime, they only wore a white shirt when it was formal. And most of the daytime, for most, even of the top highest, most millionaire, most of their occasions would have been considered semi-formal, and so they would have worn a striped or even patterned or plaid shirt. It might have had a contrasting detachable white collar or a solid detachable white collar, even white bosom, but usually the bosom was not, even the cuffs were not, so it was a striped. So this is a mistake to do again and again in films, and it is quite annoying.
Which is why I'm talking about an alliance between our two great organizations.
Yeah, I'm going to skip through. Also, not enough gloves. I have not seen a single pair of gloves. Gloves are very popular for fashion purposes, but especially because life was very dirty and people did not wash their hands a lot. There was no running water, so they had gloves to protect their hands, also to protect from the cold and to protect from the sharpness of objects outside of homes. And nobody is ever wearing gloves, ever, even in the evening, which is very inaccurate. Now the Barley Boys look especially accurate. There are 3 Barley Boys about 24 minutes into the film with very tall stovepipe hats, and they look very accurate. Yeah, so I can only see that as I saw under his bow tie and Monk McGinn, and clearly his collar is sewn in. So this is just inaccurate. He would not have been wearing a shirt like that as his everyday shirt. I want to say Leonardo DiCaprio's coat in the beginning of the movie, it looks good. It looks like a hand-sewn garment that a poor person without even access to a like 7th-hand quality-made garment would actually just take a piece of linen and sew it by himself. And it looks like sort of crap. I think this sort of recreated spirits that person would be in because he's so poor and just came out of Hellgate. وضع